All right, let's review some problems for your test. The first set of problems that we have here, we need to factor always, and our first step with factoring will be our GCF. So what we need to do in our numerator is take out, it looks like a 2a, and then the same in the denominator. So let's go ahead and try that and see what we end up with. So I'm factoring out 2a, and it looks like we have a squared minus 16 left. And then in the denominator, I'm going to factor out 2a as well. And when I do that, it looks like I have a squared plus 8a plus 16. Okay, so again, we look in our parentheses and we see that'll factor again. And the top is going to be the difference of squares. So what squared gives us the first term, and then what's being squared to give us the last term. And then in our denominator, that's trinomial factoring, so we need our two parentheses. We need a, and both signs are positive, and we need 4 and 4. Now once we've done all that, now we can come back and do our canceling, and notice the 2's will cancel, a's will cancel, and the a plus 4's will cancel. So it looks like our final answer on this is going to be answer choice C. Okay, our next problem, we have a lot of factoring that we can do here, or canceling. Everything's already factored for us. So let's go ahead and make sure we cancel our numbers. And then for the rest of this, some might find it easier just to go ahead and multiply across. So I'm going to go ahead and move over our 5 and 2. And let's look, we have a y here and a y here, so that's going to be y squared. We have a z squared, and then we also have an x squared. In the denominator, we have x and x cubed, so that's going to be x to the 4th. And then we have y to the 5th, and then z squared. And now we can go through and do all of our canceling. And so notice that, let's see, x to the 4th and x squared, those are going to cancel, leaving x squared. Our y squared is going to cancel with y to the 5th, leaving y cubed. And then z squareds will cancel out. So my final answer, the numerator just has 5 in it, but the denominator has 2x squared y cubed. So that looks like we have answer choice, where's it at? Oh, answer choice A, isn't it? Okay, for this problem, we will need to go through and do a lot of factoring here. And of course, our first step with all of this factoring would be a GCF. So up here with the 2 and the 18, I'm going to factor out a 2, and I'm going to have 1 minus 9w squared left. And whenever I factor that, then that's going to give me 2 times 1 minus 3w times 1 plus 3w. Now in the denominator here, we can do our slide and divide, and if we do that, then that 3 is going to change to a 9. And when we factor this, we're going to have w minus 9 times w plus 1. But then we need to come back and divide by that 3, so be careful. And then times, and the same process over here. We're going to multiply that 3 over, and 3 times 6 is 18. So then I'm going to factor this into w minus 9 times w plus 2. But then at the same time, just like the other, we need to come back and divide by the 3 that we've multiplied by. And then all of that is over. And here it looks like we can factor out a 4 out of each part. So I'm going to move this 4, and look at what's left over is going to be 3w squared plus 20w minus 7. And then we would multiply our 3 over. And so now we're ready to factor that. I'm going to bring down the 4, and we're going to have w, let's see, to get 20, we're going to have positive 21 times, what else are we going to have, times w minus 1. And now we need to come back and divide by our 3. Alright, so let's see what we're going to end up with here. And we can do some canceling, hopefully. So 1 minus 3w, that's the same thing, or the opposite of w minus 1/3. So that's going to leave us a -1 there. And then our w minus 3's will cancel. Let's see, these two are the same. 2 cancels into 4, leaving that 2. And let's see, I don't see anything else that will reduce down. So we have a negative, so I do need to make sure I have the negative, times, and we'll move that 3 up, get this back in the right form. And then all of that is over 2 times w plus 7. So that looks like we're going to have answer choice C. Okay, moving on. For this problem, again, the same process. We are going to have to factor. And so in the numerator, I would multiply this over. So we're going to get a 6. And so when we factor, we're going to have C minus 6 times C plus 1. Okay, so now we've got that factored. We need to come back and divide by 2. And now let's go ahead and factor the denominator. We're going to have C plus 7 times C minus 3. And now we need to change our division to multiplication, and we do multiply by the reciprocal, so we are going to flip over that second part. And so now we're ready to start some canceling, and it looks like here that C plus 1, or 2C plus 1 will cancel with that, and then our C minus 3's will cancel. So we're left with what looks like 1 over, and then it's going to be C plus 7. So that's going to give us answer choice B. Okay, moving on. Now with this problem, we have a lot of factoring. We have a lot of steps to it, so don't get lost in it. So the top part we're going to factor is going to give us P plus, let's see, P, no, not plus, sorry, P minus 4 times P minus 10. And then in the denominator, 16P cubed. We're going to change that division to multiplication, and we need to flip over the second fraction. So in the numerator, I'm going to have 2P, and what's left over is P minus 2. And then over, we are going to factor out a 3. And so when we do that, that's going to leave us a 6P and an 8. So I'm going to have P minus 4 times P minus 2. Now that we have all of that factoring done, we will go back and cancel. And when we cancel, it looks like our P minus 2's will cancel, P minus 4's will cancel, the 2 will cancel into 16, leaving 8, and P will cancel into P cubed, leaving P squared. And so now whenever we multiply all of that through, it looks like in the numerator, all that we are left with is going to be P minus 10. But then in the denominator, we're going to have this 8 times 3, so we're going to get 24P squared. And that's going to give us answer choice C. Okay, our next set of problems, all of these, or this fraction set, already has a common denominator. So happy day when that is, so we can just bring over our 3x plus 6, and we're just going to combine our terms here. So 17x minus 2x, that's going to give us 15x. Negative 9 minus negative 3, keep in mind negative 9 minus negative 3, that becomes plus a positive, and so that's going to give us negative 6. And we have a GCF of 3 in the numerator, so we're going to have 5x minus 2. And in the denominator, we have a GCF of 3, so that's going to leave me with x plus 2. And so those 3's will cancel out, and it looks like we are going to have answer choice C. Okay, now with this one, we don't have a least common denominator yet, and we need to factor to get to where we can pick out our least common denominator. So we're going to have m plus 8 times m minus 3. We need to factor. And then when we're picking out our least common denominator, when we pick that out, we are going to have m minus 3. And then we will also need to include m plus 8. And we have another m minus 3, but we don't write it again. Just writing it once will be fine. And I'm going to go ahead and write this as one ginormous fraction. And I'm going to compare what is written in our least common denominator that is not in the original. Well, that's going to be m plus 8. So I need to take my old numerator and multiply it by m plus 8. And then I have plus from the problem. And then I compare my denominators again, and notice that my least common denominator was the actual denominator of the second fraction. So I'm going to bring that down. Now let's go through and do our distributive property and collect our like terms. So we're going to have m squared plus 8m plus 5m minus 48. And all of that's still over this denominator, but please do not multiply that out. There is no need for that. Now, here we are going to transition that over to be m squared plus 13m minus 48. And that's all over m minus 3 times m plus 8. Now this numerator should factor, and so it looks like we're going to have 16 and 3. So I'm going to have m plus 16 times m minus 3. And now we can do our canceling, and so the m minus 3's are going to cancel. So I will be left with m plus 16 over m plus 8, and that's going to be answer choice D. Okay, for our next problem, same idea. Still, we need to go through and find our least common denominator. And so here, picking that out, for the first denominator I see is v plus 2, and the second one I see is v minus 6. So my new denominator is v plus 2 times v minus 6. And now let's go through and see, this is going to be 8 times, and notice v minus 6 is what is different from the denominator that we had originally, so that's what I'm going to multiply by, plus 3 times, and the difference with this other denominator compared to this one is v plus 2. So what we need to do now is go ahead and distribute. So we have 8v minus 48 plus 3v plus 6. And that's all over v plus 2 times v minus 6. Now we need to collect our terms. So we're going to have 11v. And then we'll have minus 42. And that's all over v plus 2 times v minus 6. And that should be answer choice. Looks like it's going to be answer choice B. Okay, with problems like this, then we have a complex fraction. There's the top part and here's the bottom part. And you can really think about this if you'd rather. This top part, one whole fraction, and then divided by this bottom part. You've got k minus 9 over 4k to the 6th. So that's what's going on here. Now, if we work through this, there's nothing really to factor here, so I'm going to have 9 minus k over 28k cubed. That division we're going to change to multiplication, and we are going to flip our second fraction. And now what we're going to do is go through and do our canceling. Now this 9 minus k and k minus 9, that's going to be that opposites, and so that's going to leave us negative 1. 4 will cancel into 28, leaving 7. k to the third cancels into k to the sixth, leaving k to the third. So our final answer, we have a -1 here and k to the third, and that is all over 7. So it looks like we are going to get answer choice A. Okay, for our next problem, again, very similar, same idea. However, we've got a different type of fraction here. And again, if you want to think of it as this top part and then divided by, we can do our parentheses, divided by, and then the bottom part, you're welcome to do so. So we're going to bring over r plus 3 over 12. Okay, and now let's see, we need to get a least common denominator here. So that's going to be 12. So, and I'm going to put all of this together over one denominator. So let's see, I need to multiply the bottom by 2 to get 12. So I've got to multiply the top by 2. So I'm going to have 2r squared plus, and then the same is true over here. I'm going to have to multiply by 6 top and bottom. So that's going to give me 6r over 12. And so we're going to have all of that as our numerator divided by r plus 3 over 12. Now let's go through and do our factoring, and we're going to multiply, change that to multiplication, and do our reciprocal. And we can factor out a 2r in that numerator, so we're going to have r plus 3 left over 12. We're going to change our division and multiplication, and we are going to flip our second fraction. And notice that the r plus 3's will cancel. The 12's will also cancel. So it looks like everything has canceled but 2r. So our answer is C. All right, now we're getting into some of the more complicated complex fractions. And with these, this is where we talked about finding a common denominator and then finding a common denominator a second time. So here the least common denominator up here is 4p. Down here it is 2p. And so the least common denominator for those two would be 2p. Oh, sorry, 4p. Losing my marbles. 4p. All right, so let's go through, and now I'm going to multiply every single term by 4p. So I'm going to have 4p times p minus, and then 4p times 9 over 4p. And then all of that's over 4p times 1 plus 4p times 3 over 2p. All right, now let's see what we can do in this. So I'm going to have 4p squared minus, well, those 4p's will cancel, so leaving me 9 over 4p. And then it looks like the 2p will cancel here, leaving a 2. So we're going to get 4p plus 6. Now we're almost finished. This first part is going to be the difference of squares. So we have 2p minus 3 times 2p plus 3. And then in the denominator, we're going to factor out a 2, and we're going to have a 2p plus 3. And so those are going to cancel, and so my final answer is 2p minus 3 all over 2. And do keep in mind that will not cancel anymore. Please don't try it. So our final answer is A. All right, let's look at some of these problems here. We've not had much class time with them, but they're good problems for us to do. And we're asked to find the area of the triangle. And we need to remember that the area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. So what we need to do is set up that situation here, and we probably have to do some factoring and such. So let's go ahead and set up the problem. We have the area equals, we have 14x minus 28 over x squared minus 3x minus 4. So we have that part. Of course, we have our 1/2. I forgot to write that in. And then times, here we're going to have x squared plus 9x plus 8 over x minus 2. That's our base. All right, so let's go through and do some factoring. I still have my 1/2 here times, looks like we have a GCF of 7 in the top, so that's going to leave me with 2x minus 4. Oh, nope, that's not going to be it. My bad, y'all. You're going to have a GCF of 14. Good golly. So that's going to leave me at x minus 2. Sorry about that mistake. In the bottom, we're going to have x minus 4 times x minus 1, or plus 1, sorry. And then here, we're going to multiply. In the top, we're going to have x plus 1 times x plus 8. And all of that is going to be over x minus 2. All right, we've got a mess here. So it looks like we're going to start canceling some stuff. And so x minus 2's will cancel. X plus 1's will cancel. That 1/2 will cancel into 14, leaving 7. So let's see what was left. We had 7 times x plus 8. And all of that is over x minus 4. And that's going to be, let's see if we can find that answer choice. That is going to be answer choice C. Okay, for our final problem, we're going to be asked to find the perimeter. And so really we need to make sure we add up all the sides. But what we can do is just add our 2 sides that were given and then multiply that by 2, and that'll take care of it. So let's go through and add and get this moved around so I have some room. I have here 9x plus 14, and not much we can do with that. But then the denominator, we can factor that, x minus 2 times x plus 2. And I need to add to that x plus 1 over x plus 2. So we've got to get a least common denominator, which is just a list of all the denominators that we see. No need to repeat any. And notice this first one, it does not change at all. It's the same, plus, and then here on the next one, we have x plus 1 already there, times, and we're going to have an extra x minus 2. So that means I'm going to have to multiply out. So let's see what we're going to get when we do all that multiplication, and we can bring down our 9x plus 14 plus, and when we multiply this out, we're going to get x squared. We have a negative 2x and a positive x, so that's going to be a negative x minus 2. And again, that is all over x minus 2 times x plus 2. And let's go ahead and continue with this. And we are going to have, let's see, goodness gracious, what a problem. We have x squared. We have, let's see, a 9x combining with a negative x, so that's a positive 8x. And 14 minus 2, so that's going to be positive 12. And all of this is over x minus 2 times x plus 2. And so for factoring, let's see, the numerator, that looks like that'll factor into x plus 6 times x plus 2. And those x plus 2's will definitely cancel. So my final answer would be x plus 6 over x minus 2. And that looks like that's going to be answer choice C.